No one knows you better than you. No one knows who you are and the journey you've been on better than you. So why do so many people not believe you when you tell them? Why do they think they know you better than you know yourself, telling you you're confused or just plain wrong? Let's talk about how to move forward when you are disbelieved, gaslighted, and treated with contempt. Beloved, you deserve to be believed about who you are. Period. End of story.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
Hello and welcome to the FreedHearts podcast. My name is Robert Cottrell and I'm here as always with
Susan Cottrell.
Hi, looked like I surprised you there. Did I wake you up? No.
Don't
Anyway.
say that.
Welcome, everyone. Connect with us at freedhearts.org. A reminder, we are a listener-supported podcast. We have no ads on this podcast. We are supported by people like you who listen to us, who like what we do, who think what we do has value. And your support on an ongoing basis or a one-time gift means a lot. So please support us if you can. All of that is on the Donate tab at freedhearts.org. Beloved, who knows you best? Now, no one knows you better than you. No one knows who you are and the journey that you've been on better than you know. So why do many of you endure countless people not believing you? Saying that, oh, you're just confused or you're just plain wrong about who you are. That phrase, that statement right there, you're wrong about who you are. It's like, excuse me? Mm-hmm. You deserve to be believed about who you are. Let me say that again. You deserve to be believed about who you are. Period. End of story. Full stop. Done. Thanks for listening. So today we're going to talk about how we move forward, how you move forward when you're disbelieved, when you're gaslighted, when you're treated with contempt and hate even. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about that in the way of a story. And it's a story that involves Agatha Christie. And so, Susan, I am just going to let you take it from here and enjoy yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I may have mentioned a dozen times or more that I love Agatha Christie. I love her cleverness, her being way ahead of her time, even when you factor in her racism and sexism and nationalism of the time. She was still, and classism, she was still in many ways ahead of her time. And I love that she was able to live out her life as an author, the best-selling author of all time after the Bible and Shakespeare.
And who did write that first one anyway? Sorry. The Bible part. I know.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, I'll stop. I said I was going to leave it to you, and that lasted about 23 seconds. But I will now. Go.
Okay, well, one intriguing mystery around Agatha Christie is the 11 days she went missing. It's like a story from one of her own mysteries. Do you know about this, anybody? I don't know if we have fans in the listening audience, but this was like 100 years ago. It was 1926, so almost exactly 100 years ago. And her disappearance became a very big deal on every page of every newspaper with an all-out search for her and some 1,000 policemen and an estimate of 1,000 civilians searched for her. And dogs were put on the scent, and airplanes, for the first time ever, airplanes were used in a search like this. So they found her abandoned car driven into a hedge with her belongings in it, including her coat, which seemed to point to either suicide or accident, okay, or even murder, because why would she leave her car and even her coat when it was winter if she were able to walk away from the scene? So they assumed she either drowned herself or been murdered. So this fit in with what was going on in Agatha Christie's life. To say she was under intense duress is an understatement. Her mother had just died, to whom she was very close, and her husband had just told her he was in love with another woman and wanted a divorce, which, she didn't want to give him. So she was in a terrible, stressful state. Plus, she couldn't even talk about this because she grew up in a Victorian era where people just didn't talk about anything unpleasant. And the one person she would have talked to was her mother, who had just died. So she was really in an impossible situation. So suicide seemed like a real possibility. Or that her husband had murdered her so that he could marry the other woman, because she wouldn't give him a divorce. She had to in those days. The other possibility that fits the facts was amnesia, which is what it turned out to be. I'm telling you all this for a reason. She turned out to be in something called a fugue state. That's where you lose your memory of who you are, like completely. And you act normal, except you've forgotten your own identity. And even when you create, you may even create a new identity. So today we identify this as dissociative disorder. It is essentially your brain's way of forgetting events that are too traumatic to remember. Abuse, sexual abuse, grief, or other trauma. And they actually identified this from soldiers they would observe who were shell-shocked from war. And that's how they came to understand this whole disorder, because of soldiers traumatized by war. We're not meant to suffer intense trauma. And dissociative disorder or fugue state amnesia is your brain's fail-safe to protect you. But the most insidious theory of all was the rumor that she was lying, that this was an elaborate plot, as genius as in any of her books, where she staged her own disappearance. This rumor dogged her and hurt her for the rest of her life. So, this thing about women not being believed has been around a long time. And I would include not just women, but other outliers who are not believed. So these authorities believe their own theory of events instead of believing the person's own account of their own life and their own lived experience. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Even though she'd left a letter with her maid saying, I'm going to a hotel for the weekend. Yes, she left a letter with her maid saying, who was more of a confidant friend, I'm going to a hotel for the weekend. Even though it turned out to be longer than a weekend, it's exactly what she had done. That'd be a good place to start, wouldn't it? She'd gone in this fugue state to a well-known spa for physical and mental restoration. But this letter to her maid was one of the vital clues that the police were slow to act on, because they already had their own theory in mind. Okay. She had also written a letter to her husband's brother.
Let me just stop
please.
Because that's so interesting when you say they already had this theory in their mind. If you think about the church, the narrative out there about, let's say, LGBTQ or transgender people, and it's like, well, you're this way because of this and this and this and this.
Yes.
And they say, no. I said, this is because of the faith-based family rejection, or this is because of this, and this is my experience. This is my, well, no, that's not true.
Right.
Bliss, because it fits their theory, their narrative, which, by the way, and again, this is kind of a red flag. Are they using that narrative to bolster their own power, to raise funds, things like that?
Yeah.
So if you come into conflict, if you question the narrative of the church or the political whatever, then you threaten what they've been using so effectively.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because at the end of all this, I'm not through with the story, but at the end of all this, the public wanted her to pay all the expenses for this search because she was in a spa all along. It was like, no, why don't you ask the police to pay for it? Because she wrote a letter saying, here's where I am. And they didn't even take that seriously. That's on them, bud. Not her. Okay.
Yeah, didn't she write another letter too, I think?
Yeah, she wrote a letter. So then she wrote a letter to her husband's brother, a letter that would have corroborated the idea of amnesia, but police and detectives basically dismissed it because it would dampen their theory. Wow. In fact, her estranged husband had asked for Scotland Yard to get involved. Remember, he'd become the prime suspect here now for murder. He'd asked Scotland Yard to become involved, but the local forces, who each had their own slice of glory to claim, said Scotland Yard was not necessary. Helicopters or whatever they are necessary. Dogs are necessary. Civilians are necessary, but not Scotland Yard.
I think they were planes, not helicopters.
Planes,
okay.
I meant. That's what I was searching for.
It's okay. Well, and you see that today on the TV shows and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, we're the FBI. This is our case. No, we're the Chicago PD. This is our case. Like,
they're measuring body parts.
What's the goal here?
Instead of finding true answers.
Exactly.
I know.
What's the goal? It's like we talked last week about how the fear, the focus of the fear is on that you be afraid, Christian, questioning the narrative, not be concerned about the fears of the most vulnerable people out there.
Exactly.
So it's all backwards.
Yeah, and just like her novels, all the clues are there in plain sight. If you read back over any of her mysteries, you're like, oh, I didn't see that clue before. And it's true, too. They didn't see. They didn't pay attention. But she is a woman, so, she's not really in need of support like male soldiers and is obviously lying and deceiving. Not, should be scorned for wasting everybody's time. Not. But unfortunately, statistics bear out this misogynistic perception.
And they continue to bear that out.
Yeah. If they'd seriously considered amnesia and looked for a live person instead of just a dead one, they'd have broadened their search and followed trails where she might have gone instead of the narrow search around her abandoned car. But the two approaches seem to be in competition. Why, if the object was really to find Agatha Christie, why wouldn't they work together for both possible directions to solve this mystery instead of the obsession with assuming her dead? Well, as the biography reads, it was the boys with sticks and boots searching the woods and tromping through the mud, searching for the dead body of this famous woman. Two planes overhead, gadgets of 100 years ago. That wouldn't it be just so much fun? But wouldn't it be fun to find her alive? The
headline wouldn't be as big.
Right. But they had their ideas and they couldn't be thwarted. So Christie's biographer, Lucy Worsley, called the whole thing the central injustice of her life. Indeed. Can anybody relate here to a central injustice of your life? In the end, Agatha Christie was where she said she'd be. She had suffered amnesia. She was in a fugue state, and her withdrawal to the spa was very likely the thing that could have done her mental health the most good. I've gone on at length here because I want to draw some analogies. First, you also may be or may have been in an impossible situation. Like her, you may be blocked from the relationship you want. Your parents may be unavailable to you. You may have been deeply conditioned that you can't have problems like this, and any problems that you may have are your fault. You may find that those around you, who should be trustworthy, don't believe your lived experience. For her, it was police. For you, it may be religious leaders, clergy. For both, it may be hordes of people who don't even know you, or worse, people who know you, people you know and trust, or thought you knew and thought trusted you, but may also be so deeply conditioned to defer to authorities and others who are gullible and easily swept away in a current of a false narrative. Now, a side note for any nerd who may be interested in the bigger story behind this, I recommend The Lost Days of Agatha Christie. The author, Dr. Carol Owens, is a practicing psychotherapist, and she brings together real information from transcripts and articles to create a compelling account of Agatha Christie's mindset at the time and what may really have happened. Although she has to call it ultimately fiction because it's not provable, it's the version I believe. It makes the most sense. But here's the thing. Agatha Christie's lifelong wound would be that people continued to disbelieve her and thought she had orchestrated all of it and was lying about all of it. I don't think she deserved that. I don't think anyone deserves to be falsely characterized and not believed.
I mean, isn't that the central? I love that phrase, or hate that phrase. The central injustice of your life.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
to not be believed means, well, I don't believe you, so we're not going to provide you the health care you need.
Yes.
I don't believe you, so you don't get to serve in these roles here at church or the community or wherever. I don't believe you, so you can't use this restroom.
Yeah.
I don't believe you. So there's so many things that follow that.
Yes.
And again, these are people who already, I mean, anyone in the LGBTQ community, especially in the trans, I think, but already have struggles and battles in life in a lot of things, but just not to be believed.
Because of the culture. Yes.
Yeah, it makes them even more the quote least of these, even more vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I love about this story, I agree with everything you just said wholeheartedly. And one of the things I love about this story is that Agatha Christie took matters in her own hands to get the help she needed by leaving and going to the spa, even though she was punished severely for it by people maligning her and not believing her. And you too may have been maligned and told that you orchestrated your queerness by choice, that you've developed some complicated plot, changing Bible verses, etc., to deceive everyone, that you can't be trusted. Oh my gosh, I am so sorry if that has happened to you, or in whatever ways that's happened to you. But that is not on you any more than it's on Agatha Christie. When bloodhounds of the public and the media and even police stir up drama in their endless desire for sensation, instead of taking her at her word in the 2 letters she left, or taking you at your word that you know your romantic attraction, you know your gender identity, even if you're still working it out, you know it better than the public and the media do. You know it better than anybody else does. For Agatha Christie's case, even after they found her and helped her get the help she needed, it took only a handful of remarks to go viral in the day, in newspaper and radio, the social media of the day, to turn public opinion against her and to shred her all over again. And again, she became suicidal. Not this time because of the divorce and losing her mother, but the bullying and the shaming from a public that doesn't even know her. She never even wanted notoriety. She just wanted to write books. And you too may have endured bullying and shaming from a public that doesn't know you, false accusations that people pick up and use against you. And you never wanted the notoriety. All you ever wanted was the freedom to be who you are, to be you, to love who you love. That's all. So please, please don't buy into it. Don't let it get to you. View this as their ignorance, not something wrong with you. Do this for us, if that'll help you. Do it for you, because we love you and you deserve to be loved. And no one is entitled to disrupt your well-being. There's a quote by Malcolm X. He said, "If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating people who are being oppressed and loving people who are doing the oppressing."
Yeah.
Ain't it the truth?
Yep.
Ain't it the truth? It's too late for me to tell Agatha Christie to ignore the naysayers, but I can tell you, please shift whatever you need to shift to believe in your own goodness and worthiness. A lot of things are upside down right now. Don't let the ignorance get you down, or the ignorant get you down. It's just not worth it. One of Agatha Christie's characters said, "The world is very cruel to women. They must do what they can for themselves." And the world has been very cruel to LGBTQ people. You in this community need to do what you can for yourself, and we will do what we can for you as well. It turned out that Agatha was fortunate to marry again after gaining her success in her own right. Her first marriage was patriarchal to a man who was self-consumed, cheated, and seems to have been narcissistic, and who viewed her as an addition to him. If he had not left her for another woman, she may never have uncovered her gift and thus contribute some of the most enthralling stories ever written. She thought she would die when he left, and she swore she'd never marry again. But she ended up in a much better marriage that was a loving and egalitarian partnership and a much better life. Her worst nightmare turned out to be a gift. You may feel stuck, still trying to please those around you, trying to be straight when you're not, trying to be cisgender when you're not. Or you may just wonder if you'll ever find your heart's desire. Take heart. Beloved, take heart. Let this story encourage you. Whatever you need to do to free yourself from others' approval, do it. Don't stay stuck in something that does not fit you. Something much better awaits. We love you so much. That's why we say this with such passion.
Yeah.
Something better awaits you.
Yes. Beloved, as I said when I started this, you deserve to be believed about who you are. Period. End of story. Full stop. Don't settle for anything less. We love you. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Would it be okay if I were to tell you that I am afraid someday? So I call you up and you call me down. Would it be okay?
You've been listening to the Freed Hearts Podcast. We have extensive resources and vibrant, inclusive community for you at freedhearts.org. Please just come say hello. If you have questions, comments, or suggestions for the podcast, just email us at podcast@freedhearts.org. Audio engineering is provided by Luke Johnson. The music is provided by our daughter, Hannah Cottrell, who is Grammy nominated. You can find out more about her and her music at hannahcottrell.com. Please share, subscribe and follow on your favorite platform, and support us if you can. Thanks for listening.